Wrestling isn't just about high-flying moves, intense rivalries, and roaring crowds, it's about the people behind the masks and the stories that go beyond the ring. For wrestlers, the journey is filled with incredible highs, but also some of the toughest, most emotional moments you could imagine. These are the times when even the toughest athletes, who are used to pushing through pain and putting on a brave face, couldn't hold back their tears. Whether it's saying goodbye to a beloved friend, facing a heartbreaking loss, or dealing with the weight of personal struggles under the spotlight, these moments remind us that wrestlers are human too. They feel deeply, they grieve, and sometimes, the world watching sees a side of them we don't often get to witness, a raw, honest glimpse into what it really means to fight, not just in the ring, but in life itself. 1. Conor, the Crusher, Mihalik, the little warrior with a giant heart. Conor Mihalik's story is one of those moments that truly shows what real courage looks like. Conor wasn't a wrestler himself, but his bravery in facing a rare and aggressive brain and spinal cancer turned him into a hero for so many people. What he went through was unimaginable, especially for someone so young, but his spirit shined brighter than most adults could ever manage. For Conor, WWE wasn't just something to watch on TV, it was a beacon of hope during a time filled with fear and uncertainty. Wrestling gave him joy and excitement when he needed it most. He found a special connection with Daniel Bryan, the ultimate underdog who never quit, no matter how tough the fight. To Conor, Daniel Bryan wasn't just a wrestler, he was a symbol of strength and perseverance. When WWE learned about Conor's wish to meet his hero, they made something extraordinary happen. At WrestleMania 30, Conor stepped into the spotlight in a way no one would forget. Walking into the ring with Daniel Bryan, he playfully punched Triple H and even pinned him down. The crowd erupted with cheers, not just for the playful moment but for the incredible courage behind it. That night was about more than wrestling, it was a celebration of a little boy's bravery and joy, despite the heartbreaking battle he was facing. Conor's presence that night inspired everyone watching. It was a powerful reminder that heroes don't always wear capes or show up in the spotlight on their own, they sometimes fight silent battles that are even harder. Conor showed us that courage isn't about size or age, it's about heart. Sadly, just weeks after that unforgettable WrestleMania moment, Conor passed away at only 8 years old. His story left a deep mark on the WWE community and fans around the world. But even in his short life, Conor, the Crusher, Mihalik taught us all a lesson about bravery, hope, and the true meaning of being a hero. 2. Roman Reigns, fighting life's toughest battle. If you're a WWE fan today, you know Roman Reigns as the tribal chief, a dominant force in the ring with a presence that commands respect from everyone watching. But behind that confident, sometimes intimidating exterior, there's a story of real, quiet courage that many didn't know at first. When Roman first burst onto the wrestling scene, opinions were divided. Some fans loved him, some were skeptical, and others weren't quite sure what to make of him. But underneath the cheers and boos, Roman was carrying a fight that was much bigger than any opponent in the ring. In October 2018, Roman did something incredibly brave. He stood in front of thousands of fans and opened up about his battle with leukemia, a battle he'd been fighting since 2007. The disease had come back after years of remission, and sharing that truth was raw and emotional. He gently placed his Universal Championship belt down on the mat, as if to say, this fight matters more than anything else right now. The arena went silent. Everyone felt the weight of what Roman was sharing. It was a moment beyond wrestling, it was about real life and real struggle. What made that moment even more powerful was seeing Roman's closest friends and fellow wrestlers, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, come out to stand by his side. They were visibly emotional, tears in their eyes, showing how much support Roman had beyond the ring. This wasn't just a wrestling story anymore, it was a story about human strength, resilience, and hope. Roman taught everyone that true toughness isn't about championships or loud cheers, it's about facing your hardest battles head-on, even when nobody's watching. Roman's journey reminds us all that the toughest fights are often the ones we face inside ourselves. And it's okay to be vulnerable, to ask for help, and to keep going, no matter how hard things get. His story inspires fans not just to admire his skills in the ring, but to respect the strength it takes to confront life's challenges with honesty and courage. 3. Edge, farewell at the peak and a miraculous return. Edge's story is one of those journeys that feels like it belongs in a movie, full of triumph, heartbreak, and an incredible second chance. Heading into WrestleMania 27, Edge was at the top of his game. He was the World Heavyweight Champion, delivering matches that fans couldn't stop talking about. His connection with the crowd was electric, and it seemed like nothing could stop him. Life looked perfect in that moment, but sometimes life has other plans. Just days after defending his title, Edge shared some news that crushed fans and friends alike. Doctors had diagnosed him with cervical spinal stenosis, a serious neck injury that made it dangerous for him to keep wrestling. The risk wasn't just career-ending, it was life-threatening. If he continued, he could face permanent paralysis. For someone like Edge, whose passion and identity were wrapped up in the wrestling ring, this was devastating. Wrestling wasn't just a job, it was his life, his purpose. Yet, in the face of this painful truth, Edge made a decision that showed unbelievable strength. He chose to retire immediately. There was no big farewell tour, no grand spectacle. Just a quiet, heartbreaking goodbye to the sport he loved so much. That night in the arena felt heavy. Everyone knew they were witnessing the end of an era. Edge's absence left a hole in the wrestling world, but it was clear that his health came first. Over the next few years, Edge wrestled with more than just physical pain. There were emotional struggles, doubts, and the difficult reality of watching the world of wrestling continue without him. Then, in 2020, something truly miraculous happened. At the Royal Rumble, the arena erupted as Edge's music hit. The crowd's reaction was like a tidal wave, a mix of tears, cheers, and disbelief. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a celebration of hope and resilience. Against all odds, Edge had returned to the ring. His story became more than just wrestling highlights. It was a powerful lesson about survival and determination. Edge reminded everyone watching that no matter how dark the road gets, it's possible to find your way back. His return was proof that with courage and perseverance, even the most impossible dreams can come true. 4. Daniel Bryan, the man who defied fate. Daniel Bryan's story is one of the most inspiring underdog tales in wrestling history. He wasn't the biggest guy, and he didn't have the flashy look that often grabs the spotlight in WWE. But what Daniel had was something far more important: heart. Tons of it. And that's what made him stand out and capture the hearts of fans everywhere. If you remember WrestleMania 30, you know exactly what I'm talking about. After battling through a grueling match with Triple H, Daniel Bryan didn't stop. He went on to take on Randy Orton and Batista. All in the same night. And he won. When Bryan finally pinned Batista, the crowd exploded with the famous "Yes" chants. It was one of those rare moments where it felt like the whole world was cheering on the little guy. Pure magic. But life has a way of testing us all. Shortly after that unforgettable night, Daniel Bryan was diagnosed with a serious neck injury that forced him to give up the championship and step away from wrestling. It was heartbreaking, not just for Daniel but for all the fans who believed in his journey. Suddenly, the dream seemed to slip through their fingers. For years, Daniel battled not only physical pain but the emotional toll of uncertainty. Would he ever step back in the ring? Could he wrestle again? The road to recovery was long and filled with doubt. But then, in 2018, something amazing happened. Against the odds, Daniel Bryan returned. And when he did, the "Yes" chants came back louder and stronger than ever. His comeback wasn't just about wrestling, it was a powerful message that no matter how hard life tries to knock you down, passion and perseverance can rewrite your story. Daniel Bryan's journey teaches us something important. It's not about how many times you fall, it's about how many times you stand back up and keep moving forward. His story is a reminder that with heart and determination, we can overcome even the toughest challenges. 5. Owen Hart, a tragic loss that shook wrestling to its core. May 23, 1999, that's a date that will haunt the wrestling world forever. Over the Edge, a big pay-per-view event, was supposed to be a night of amazing action and jaw-dropping moments. But it turned into one of the darkest nights in wrestling history. Owen Hart was one of the most beloved and talented wrestlers out there. He had this superhero character called the Blue Blazer, which was a perfect mix of athleticism, humor, and charm. Fans loved watching him fly around the ring. For this show, he was supposed to make an incredible entrance, descending from the rafters like a real-life superhero. But then, something went terribly wrong. The harness that was supposed to lower him safely malfunctioned. Instead of a smooth, awe-inspiring entrance, Owen fell nearly 80 feet. The crowd gasped in horror as he hit the ropes and then crashed hard on the mat. It was a moment none of us wanted to see, and the shock was immediate. Medical teams rushed in, doing everything they could, but the injuries were too severe. Owen passed away just 33 minutes later, at only 34 years old. The wrestling community was shattered. Wrestlers, staff, and fans alike were left with a pain that was impossible to shake. That night sparked a lot of debate, especially about the decision to continue the show afterward. It was a difficult and heartbreaking choice, balancing respect for Owen's life with the reality of live entertainment. The next night, WWE held a tribute show called Raw is Owen, where everyone, wrestlers and fans, came together to remember the man behind the mask. There were tears, silence, and stories shared about Owen's kindness, humor, and the warmth he brought to everyone around him. Owen's death reminds us just how dangerous this sport can be, and how fragile life is behind all the spectacle and excitement. His legacy lives on in the hearts of everyone who knew him and loved watching him perform. It's a sobering moment that wrestling fans will never forget. 6. Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania's quiet exit. When you hear the name Shawn Michaels, wrestling fans immediately think of the Heartbreak Kid or Mr. WrestleMania. This was a man who didn't just wrestle, he created moments that made the crowd hold their breath, moments filled with such energy that you could feel it in the air. Shawn's career was packed with jaw-dropping matches and unforgettable stories, but even legends have to know when it's time to step away. By the time WrestleMania 25 rolled around in 2009. Shawn Michaels was already a veteran, someone who had faced everything the wrestling world could throw at him: injuries, heartbreaks, big wins, and crushing losses. That night, he faced The Undertaker in a match filled with history and tension, like a final chapter in a long and intense story. Shawn gave everything he had, fighting with the passion and heart he was famous for. But the legendary Undertaker's streak lived on, and Shawn came up short. Many thought that would be the perfect place for Shawn to call it quits. But Shawn Michaels wanted to tell his own story on his own terms. He wasn't ready to say goodbye just yet. So, when WrestleMania 26 came, he and The Undertaker faced off one last time. This wasn't just a match, it was a beautiful mix of rivalry and respect, friendship and competition. Every move they made felt like a conversation, a story told through their years of shared history. When the final bell rang, Shawn didn't throw a big celebration or soak in roaring applause. Instead, he took a simple, quiet bow. It was a moment full of sincerity and grace, a heartfelt goodbye from a man who gave his soul to every second in the ring. That quiet exit wasn't just the end of Shawn's career, it was the close of a chapter filled with passion, love, and dedication to the sport he gave so much to. The legacy Shawn Michaels left behind still inspires fans and wrestlers alike, reminding us that sometimes the most powerful moments don't need grand gestures, they just need honesty. 7. Eddie Guerrero, A Journey of Heart and Redemption. If you know wrestling, you've probably heard the name Eddie Guerrero, and if you haven't, it's time to get familiar. Eddie wasn't just Latino Heat because of a catchy nickname, it was the fire he carried inside every time he stepped into the ring. Watching Eddie was like watching a storyteller who used every move, every smile, and every moment to connect with the crowd in a way that felt personal and electric. But Eddie's magic wasn't just about showmanship. It was about heart, the kind of deep, relentless spirit that pushes you through life's toughest battles. Born into the legendary Guerrero wrestling family, Eddie grew up with wrestling running through his veins. For him, it wasn't just a job, it was part of his identity. That family legacy was both a blessing and a heavy weight. He had to prove himself, not just as a Guerrero but as his own man, carving out his path in the wrestling world. Behind the scenes, things weren't always easy. Eddie faced challenges that most fans never saw. The pressure to live up to the family name, the struggles with personal demons, and moments when the road felt like it was closing in on him. There were times when doubts and setbacks threatened to take him down. At one point, WWE even let him go, a moment that could have felt like the end of his story, but Eddie wasn't someone to give up. Instead of letting that door slam shut, it became a turning point. He made tough choices, worked hard to overcome his struggles, and fought to rebuild himself, both inside and outside the ring. When he returned to WWE in 2002, it wasn't just the same wrestler, they got a new Eddie Guerrero, full of renewed energy and passion. Eddie's journey wasn't just about wrestling championships or epic matches, it was about redemption, resilience, and heart. He reminded everyone that no matter how hard life hits you, it's possible to rise, to fight back, and to win the respect and love of fans around the world. Eddie Guerrero's legacy lives on, not just as a wrestling legend, but as a symbol of hope and courage. 8. Bray Wyatt, a creative genius gone too soon. Bray Wyatt wasn't just your typical WWE wrestler, he was more like a storyteller, someone who brought a special kind of magic to the ring. From the very beginning, when he showed up as the mysterious leader of the Wyatt family, there was something dark and eerie about him that you just couldn't look away from. He had this way of pulling you into his world, making every moment feel like more than just a wrestling match. Then came The Fiend, his haunting alter ego, a character so creepy and chilling it gave his matches an entirely new layer of emotion and suspense. Watching Bray wasn't just about the moves, it was about feeling the story, the tension, and the strange beauty of his performances. Bray's creativity was one of a kind, but like many artists, his journey wasn't always smooth sailing. Some of his best ideas didn't get the spotlight they deserved, and those big title moments sometimes slipped just out of reach. But no matter what, Bray had this incredible way of bouncing back. He never lost that spark that kept fans on the edge of their seats, wondering what wild, mysterious thing he'd come up with next. When he came back in 2022 with the eerie Uncle Howdy, it felt like a new chapter in an ongoing dark tale, and people were hooked, ready for whatever he had in store. Then, in 2023, everything changed. The wrestling world was stunned when Bray passed away suddenly at just 36 years old, due to heart complications related to COVID-19. The news hit hard, not just because of his talent, but because he was someone who brought real soul to the sport. WWE's tributes were heartfelt and touching. There was the silent 10-bell salute on SmackDown, a moment that felt like the whole wrestling family was holding its breath. His Wyatt family teammates stood quietly, honoring him with deep respect, and during a live show, Seth Rollins asked fans to light up their phones in a glowing tribute that felt like a collective goodbye. It wasn't just about Bray the wrestler, it was about Bray the artist, the creator, and the person who made wrestling feel like something bigger. 9. The Undertaker, the end of an era and a legendary farewell. When you think of WWE legends, The Undertaker stands in a league of his own. For nearly 3 decades, Mark Calloway embodied the character of the dead man, a mysterious, almost otherworldly figure whose presence was impossible to ignore. From the moment those haunting drums would start and the lights dimmed, you knew you were about to witness something special. The Undertaker's walk to the ring wasn't just an entrance, it was a ritual, filled with atmosphere and emotion that drew fans in like a magnet. One of the most incredible parts of his story was his WrestleMania winning streak. 21 straight victories on the biggest stage of them all, it was a feat that seemed almost magical, something that went beyond wrestling and into legend. Year after year, fans waited eagerly, wondering if anyone could finally break the streak. And then, at WrestleMania 30, it happened, Brock Lesnar defeated The Undertaker. The arena was stunned into silence. It was one of those moments where time seemed to stop, and the weight of what had just happened hung in the air. No one wanted to believe it at first because it felt like the end of something much bigger than a wrestling match. Reflecting on that night, you realize The Undertaker was battling through some physical challenges, and while he may not have been at his peak, the impact of that loss was more about the emotion and symbolism than anything else. It marked a turning point, a quiet moment of transition for WWE. Then came WrestleMania 33, where The Undertaker faced Roman Reigns in what felt like a farewell match. When the final bell rang and Roman walked away victorious, The Undertaker did something unforgettable. He removed his gloves, his coat, and his iconic hat and laid them carefully in the center of the ring. That simple act spoke volumes. It was a quiet, powerful goodbye, not just to wrestling but to an era, a character, and a legacy that touched millions. 10. Jerry Lawler, When Death Knocked on Live TV. In September 2012, something happened during a live wrestling broadcast that left fans across the world holding their breath. Jerry, the King Lawler, a beloved figure in wrestling, both for his legendary in-ring career and his energetic presence as a commentator, was doing what he'd done so many times before, calling the action with passion and humor. But then, right there during the show, everything changed. Without warning, Jerry collapsed at the announcer's desk, and his colleague Michael Cole, noticing something was wrong, quickly realized this wasn't a joke or part of the script. In seconds, the arena's energy shifted from excitement to quiet panic. Behind the scenes, trained medical professionals sprang into action, fighting to stabilize Jerry as the cameras respectfully pulled away. It would later be revealed that Jerry had suffered a cardiac arrest, his heart had stopped beating for nearly 20 minutes. It's a haunting number to hear, and even more powerful when you realize that survival in such situations is rare. But thanks to immediate care and a bit of what many called a miracle, Jerry made it through. For fans and everyone backstage, it wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a deeply emotional moment that reminded everyone how real life can break through the fantasy in the blink of an eye. This wasn't about characters or championships, it was about a man's life, about vulnerability, and about the heroes who don't wear tights or boots, but uniforms and gloves. After recovering, Jerry returned not just as a survivor, but as a reminder of how precious life truly is. His journey brought the wrestling community even closer, showing that beyond the performances and rivalries are real people with families, fears, and incredible stories of strength. It reminded fans to cherish those behind the mic and inside the ring, because sometimes the greatest battles are the ones we never see coming. Jerry's recovery wasn't just a personal victory, it was a moment of gratitude shared by millions who realized just how fragile and beautiful life really is. 11. Ric Flair. The Nature Boy's emotional farewell. Ric Flair is a name that instantly brings to mind the glitz, the drama, and the heart of professional wrestling. Known as the Nature Boy, Flair wasn't just a wrestler, he was a legend who embodied what it meant to be a showman and a champion. With his flashy robes, unmistakable whoop shout, and a wrestling style that combined skill with charisma, Flair captured the imagination of fans worldwide. Holding 16 world championships, he didn't just collect titles, he set the standard for what a wrestling icon truly looks like, but every legend eventually reaches the end of their story. In 2008, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon made it clear, Ric Flair's next loss would be his last match with the company. That moment arrived at WrestleMania 24, where Flair faced Shawn Michaels, a wrestler who wasn't just a fierce competitor but also a close friend. The match itself was more than just a contest of strength and skill, it was storytelling at its purest. Every move, every glance, carried the weight of years of respect, rivalry, and shared history. The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every moment as these two icons battled in the ring one last time. When Shawn Michaels leaned in and whispered, "I'm sorry. I love you," it cut through all the bravado and brought a wave of real, heartfelt emotion over everyone watching. Flair's final moments in the ring were honest and vulnerable. When he finally lay down on the mat, it felt like a symbolic passing of the torch, and the closing of a chapter filled with unforgettable memories. The following night on Raw, the atmosphere shifted into something almost like a family reunion. Legends from every era came together to honor Flair, celebrating not only his incredible career but also the man behind the persona. Flair, often known for his bravado, was visibly moved, tears shining in his eyes. It was clear just how much wrestling, and the fans, meant to him. Ric Flair's farewell was more than just an ending, it was a reminder of the lasting impact one person can have on an entire sport and its community. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable updates.